All right, so today we're going to dive into something that I think is super fascinating.
Yep.
It's kind of like behind the scenes in the world of medicine.
Okay.
We're talking about how medications are actually monitored for safety after they've already been approved and are out there being used by people.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, a drug, it's the green light, it's out in the market, but then,
Right.
and what's really cool is that we're seeing this huge shift towards using digital tools and all this like data crunching power to really keep a closer eye on things. And I think that's what we want to unpack today.
Absolutely. I think that's a really important area. And as you said, it is kind of behind the scenes because most people think about, a drug gets approved, great, I can take it now.
Right.
But there's a whole nother world that kind of kicks in at that point.
Exactly. It's like, okay, it passed the initial test, but now it's game time, It's
Right.
out there in the real world with millions of people potentially using it.
Yeah, you got it. And all those people are different, right? They have different lifestyles, different medical histories, other medications they might be taking.
Right.
And that's where this whole idea of post-market surveillance comes in.
Okay, so let's break that down. What exactly does post-market surveillance mean?
So essentially, it's the ongoing process of monitoring the safety of a drug after it's been approved and released for use.
Okay.
And traditionally, this has involved things like collecting reports of adverse events from doctors and patients.
Got it. So like if someone starts taking a new medication and they experience a weird side effect, they'd report it.
Exactly. And that information would be collected and analyzed to see if there are any emerging safety concerns.
That makes sense. So it's kind of like a reactive system. You wait for those reports to come in.
Yeah, that's the traditional model. But what's so exciting now is how these digital tools are allowing us to be much more proactive.
Okay, so tell me more about that. What's changing and how are these digital tools making things different?
Well, for starters, we have a lot more data available now than ever before.
Yeah, right.
I mean, think about all the electronic health records, all the information people are sharing online through social media or patient forums.
Yes, a ton of information.
It's a huge amount of data. And what's even more amazing is that we're developing powerful AI systems that can sift through all of this and identify patterns that might indicate a potential safety issue.
So it's like having this super smart detective constantly scanning the landscape for any early warning signs.
Exactly. And that's what makes this so revolutionary. It's not just about waiting for reports to trickle in. It's about actively looking for potential problems before they become widespread.
I'm already seeing how this is a total game changer, but can you give me some concrete examples of the digital tools that are being used? Like, what are we talking about specifically?
Sure. So one area that's really taking off is the use of mobile apps.
Okay, like the kind of apps people already use to track their fitness or their sleep.
Yeah, exactly. And now these apps can be adapted to collect really valuable information about how people are experiencing their medications.
So they could report any side effects they're having right through the app.
Exactly. And that data can then be sent back to researchers or drug companies to be analyzed.
And that's so much faster than waiting for people to remember to tell their doctor at their next appointment.
Absolutely. It's real-time data, and it's coming directly from the patients themselves.
Okay, that's amazing. What else? What about wearable technology like smartwatches and fitness trackers? How are they playing a role?
Wearables are incredibly powerful tools because they can continuously monitor things like heart rate, sleep patterns, activity levels.
Right.
And these physiological signals can sometimes provide early clues that something might be off.
So like if someone's heart rate suddenly starts spiking after they start a new medication, that could be a red flag.
Precisely. And
Yeah.
that kind of information might not even be something the person is consciously aware of, but the wearable is picking it up.
That's amazing. So it's like having this always on silent observer that's looking for those subtle changes.
Exactly. And that's why wearables are becoming such a valuable part of the whole drug safety puzzle.
Now we can't talk about digital tools without mentioning AI. I mean, it seems like it's everywhere these days.
Yeah.
So how is AI specifically being used to enhance drug safety?
Well, AI really shines when it comes to analyzing those massive data sets we talked about earlier.
Okay.
Remember all that information from electronic health records, social media posts, online searches? It's just too much for humans to process effectively.
Yeah, it would be like trying to find a needle in a haystack.
Exactly. But AI algorithms can be trained to identify patterns and connections within all that data.
That's amazing. So it can spot those subtle signals that might indicate a potential problem, even if those signals are buried under mountains of other information.
You got it. And that's what we call AI signal detection. It's like having this superpowered detective constantly on the lookout for anything unusual or unexpected.
So is that already happening? Are there actual examples of AI being used to detect safety signals?
Oh, absolutely. It's
Right.
not just a futuristic concept. It's being used right now.
Wow.
And while we might not always hear about the specifics because of patient privacy and all that,
Right.
there have been numerous cases where AI algorithms have successfully identified potential adverse events that were not previously known.
That's incredible. So it's actually leading to new discoveries about drug safety.
It is. It's helping us understand the potential risks and benefits of medications in ways that were never possible before.
Okay, so we've got mobile apps, wearables, AI signal detection. It seems like we're building this really powerful toolkit for monitoring drug safety.
Yeah.
But how do all these pieces fit together?
That's where the concept of big data integration comes in.
Okay, tell me more about that.
So each of those digital tools we've discussed provides a piece of the puzzle.
Okay.
But the real magic happens when we can bring all that data together.
Right.
We're talking about integrating information from electronic health records, pharmacy dispensing data insurance claims, clinical trials, and even social media.
Wow, so it's like creating this massive interconnected web of information.
Exactly. And when we can analyze all of that data together, we get a much more comprehensive and holistic view of how a drug is actually being used and how it's affecting different people.
I can see how that would be incredibly valuable, especially since people often have multiple health conditions and might be taking several medications at the same time.
Absolutely. It allows us to understand potential interactions and risks in a much more nuanced way.
Okay, so this is all sounding very impressive, but I'm curious, are there any real-world examples of this kind of big data integration being used to monitor drug safety?
Oh yeah, there's some really exciting initiatives underway.
Okay.
One prime example is the FDA's Sentinel initiative.
I think I've heard of that. What exactly is it?
So Sentinel is a system that uses these massive electronic healthcare databases and insurance claims data to proactively monitor the safety of medications and other medical products that are already on the market.
So it's not just waiting for reports to come in, it's actively searching for potential problems.
Exactly. It's that proactive approach we've been talking about. And it's a really powerful example of how big data integration can be used to enhance drug safety.
That's fantastic. So it sounds like we're really entering a new era of drug safety monitoring thanks to these digital tools.
Yeah, we are. And I think the potential benefits for patients are enormous.
Okay, so let's talk about that. What are some of the key ways that this digital revolution in drug safety is actually improving things for patients?
Well, first and foremost, it's all about early detection.
Okay,
The sooner we can identify a potential safety issue, the sooner we can take steps to address it.
all right, that makes sense.
Whether that means changing the dosage of a medication, providing additional monitoring, or even withdrawing the drug from the market altogether.
So it's about preventing those problems from becoming more widespread.
Exactly. And that's where those real-time monitoring tools we talked about come in.
The mobile apps and the wearables.
Precisely. They can alert healthcare providers to potential issues as they're happening, which allows for much quicker intervention.
And that can make a huge difference in terms of preventing serious complications or even saving lives.
Absolutely. And another key benefit is that these digital tools allow us to personalize drug safety monitoring to a certain extent.
Okay, how so?
Well, by analyzing all this data, we can start to identify specific risk factors for different groups of patients.
Right.
So, for example, we might learn that a particular drug is more likely to cause a certain side effect in people with a certain genetic predisposition, or in people who are also taking other medications.
That's really interesting. So it's about tailoring the monitoring to the individual patient.
Exactly, and that's where the whole field of personalized medicine is headed.
Yeah, it's amazing to think about the possibilities.
It is. It's really about using all this information to make sure that each patient is getting the safest and most effective treatment possible.
Okay, so it sounds like these digital tools are having a really positive impact on drug safety, but are there any challenges or concerns that come along with all of this?
Yeah, of course, anytime you're dealing with sensitive health information, data privacy and security are paramount.
Right.
We need to make sure that all this data is being collected, stored, and used responsibly and ethically.
Absolutely. That's crucial.
And then there's the issue of making sure that these AI algorithms are accurate and reliable.
Right. We're essentially putting a lot of trust in these algorithms to make important decisions about people's health.
Exactly. So we need to be very careful about how we train and validate these systems.
So it's not just about the technology itself, it's also about the ethical considerations and the human oversight that's involved.
Absolutely. It's about finding that balance between the power of these digital tools and the importance of human judgment and expertise.
Well, this has been a fascinating deep dive into the world of digital drug safety surveillance. I think it's clear that these technologies are already having a significant impact, and the future possibilities are just incredible.
I agree. It's a really exciting time to be working in this field.
So to wrap things up, what would you say is the most important takeaway for our listeners today?
I think the key message is that these digital tools are giving us a whole new level of insight into how medications work in the real world.
Okay.
And that's allowing us to monitor their safety and effectiveness much more closely and proactively than ever before.
Which ultimately means safer and better healthcare for everyone.
Exactly. That's the ultimate goal.
Well said, and I have one final thought for our listeners to
Mhm.
ponder as they go about their day.
Okay, I'm listening.
We've talked a lot about how these digital tools are enhancing drug safety monitoring on a broader scale.
All right.
But what about the potential for truly personalized pharmacovigilance?
Interesting.
What if we could use all this data to create individualized safety profiles for each patient?
Yeah.
Imagine a future where your smartwatch, your mobile app, and your electronic health record are all working together
No.
to monitor how you're responding to a specific medication and alert your doctor to any potential issues in real time.
Wow, that's a really compelling vision.
It is, and I think it's a future that might be closer than we think. So as we continue to explore the power of these digital tools, I think it's worth considering how we can use them to not only improve drug safety for everyone,
Yeah,
but also to create a more personalized and proactive approach to healthcare.
absolutely. I think that's a fantastic point to leave our listeners with. And it's certainly something that I'm going to be thinking about as well.
Well, thank you so much for joining us today for this deep dive into the world of digital drug safety surveillance.
It was my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
And to all our listeners out there, thanks for tuning in and keep exploring the frontiers of knowledge.
Definitely.
We'll see you next time.